Investor Wednesdays.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so glad you finally asked me to be on your show after watching so many of them. And I love what you're doing to help women.
Well, I am so happy that you are here because we've known each other for a while, and I think we're the OGs, right? We're the OGs. We don't want to call ourselves goats, but we're definitely we've been doing it a while. You've been helping a lot of women. We need to hear about the book, right? That I so graciously got a copy of last year when we connected in Texas. But before we jump in and hear your story, I just want to remind the audience why we're here, and so that they know why I'm doing this and why wonderful guests like you are here. Back in 2019, I heard a stat that of all of the commercial real estate women, or all of the commercial real estate investors in the domestic U.S., only 3% were women. And of that 3%, half was women that signed on their husband's guarantees and inherited. So basically 1.5%, you and I are part of 1.5% of investors that are women in commercial real estate. And I thought that was deplorable. I know you do too. And so I said, how can I help that? How can I change that? How can I get more women to invest? I didn't want to go out and start teaching them how to do it. I just said, how can I inspire them to do it? And I kept digging in and interviewing different women, or just chit-chatting with them and like saying, well, why aren't you investing? And first they said, well, I need $1 million. And I said, no, you don't. And then they said, well, it's risky and complicated. I said, well, do you invest anywhere? And they say, yeah, the stock market. I go, you don't think that's risky and complicated? And Pam, a lot of these people like us are in the business. So it's like legal insider trading. And I'm like, I don't understand. You rep Starbucks, you find a site for Starbucks, and then you give those two things to, not a woman developer. So finally, someone said to me, I think one or two women said, well, I don't know any other women doing it. And it was like an aha moment. And I said, okay, I'm going to do a virtual summit during COVID. I'm going to interview women. I'm going to get a bunch of women to jump on and watch me interview these women who were actual investors. And then that turned into a conference. And in March, we'll have our 5th annual Women Investor Summit, where it's the same. It's basically getting women in a room, 250 women, listening to women's stories like yours, and helping give them the confidence and the network of, if she can do it, so can I, right? So then I realized, well, that I can only do that one time a year. How else during the rest of the year can I put women like you on a platform to share your stories? And I realized the good old fashioned podcast. So I think this might be our 30th episode, where on Wednesday nights at 7:00, I try to find women like you to interview so that you can share your story, they can learn from you, and then more women will be investors. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So tell everyone, can you give a few minutes on your career before we jump into investing? Because you've been doing it, I think, as long as me. I started in 86. When did you start?
I started my career in 87, but I didn't start investing until 20 years ago.
Right. I didn't start investing till 92. So let's just do a brief on your career so they know the OG that you are, the Brinker days.
Right. Well, thank you. I know I like to share a quick story of how I went from interior designer to investor in 38 years. But I have my degree in interior design. I always wanted to be a hotel interior designer. And I did get a job offer at JW Marriott. I was living in Omaha. I graduated from Nebraska and Lincoln and got that great job offer. And I turned it down I did get it at JW and ended up doing interior design for only 1 year. And then my career started doing when they first came out in the late 80s, which was not a good time in commercial real estate, but they were the power center. So the company I worked for in Omaha did these power centers in Arizona at the time. So my first half of my career was large shopping center development. And then I ended up I was on the landlord side that whole time. And then I wanted to find out what it's like to be on the tenant side to get that experience. And most people either stay on the landlord side, as you know, or stay on the tenant side. So they don't switch. But I wanted to learn the tenant side. And when I moved to Dallas, I ended up going to work, as you mentioned, Brinker International. And at the time, back in 2003, they owned 7 concepts. And I was doing Chili's from the ground up and did more than 50 of those. And I don't know if you knew this, but I'm the chili pepper queen. So, because I was the only one that could ever get that large chili pepper on top of the restaurant approved by the mayor of the city of Dallas in the city to ever get that approved. So I got a big award. And so after developing more than 50 of those, I mean, I really became an expert on land development because I was in the property development as a property development manager. The real estate manager found the site, development took over. We had to get all the landlord approval, all the city approval. So I had to attend every P&Z, city council, SUP, utility, 6 lanes on the other side, you name it. I experienced it.
Wow.
And then they're like, you're opening up 15 of these a year. Wow. We're going to give you on the border for the whole country. And I'm like, woo, but I found out by talking to one of the landlords who was developing a lot of the Chili's that the real thing that he was doing was he would find the land and then do a 10-year ground lease with a Chili's. And that value, he could sell it and make anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million plus on one tenant deal. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I put together a business plan. I'm like, I'm smart enough. I can do this after all that. And I talked to several different landlords, put a business plan together, put everything I knew, showed it to one of the landlords. He had 50 years of experience, became my mentor and took me under his wing. And we were business partner for 4 years. And I still see him to this day. And he's like 89 years old. But I really owe a lot that he took the chance on me to start my own business. And then that was in 2006. So I've had my own development here in Dallas. We do development, brokerage, and consulting, because I always thought there were like 3 different silos. As you know, as like brokerage or consulting, I could make money like that day. And then brokerage, I could get paid in a month to 6 months or longer, as you know. But then in development, can take anywhere from 3 months to 300 years, So I broke my company into 3 different categories of that.
So smart. Yeah. Well, people, you hear these stories. Well, I'm going to invest. I'm going to buy deals with OPM and I'm going to replace my W-2 right away with passive income. And I'm like, okay, no, and no. That's not how this works. Okay. So before we talk about your first deal, guess what? I am an LP in an On the Border in Dallas, Texas.
Oh my gosh. Which one? That's awesome.
Now you're going to ask me which one. I have no idea. It's on an out parcel of a mall next to a Hooters. That's what I know.
Well, we have a few of those around Dallas since we have no beach like you and no mountains. So we eat and shop a lot.
So anyway, isn't that funny? That was my, I invested. I always say I like to invest with jockeys. And this was a young kid, 29 years old at the time. He's now, I think, 35. And it was his first deal. And he said, I'm going to buy this on the border in Texas. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, do you want in? I go, no. I don't buy outside of Florida. And then he calls, he goes, okay, I put it under contract. I go, you did? He goes, yeah. I go, did you put up a deposit? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, send me the package. So I ended up investing in that deal and brought some of my friends in, and which helped him get the deal, the equity that he needed. And it's a long-term hold. It's we're looking to see what happens in the next few years. But yeah, and I actually, I think a year ago I was in Dallas driving down the interstate, and I look over and I see this on the border, and it was by a mall, and I took a picture and go, is this our deal? And it was our deal. So that was very funny. So, all right, back up. So first deal that you, as a female or woman investor, tell us about that first time. Were you scared? What was it? I presume it was retail.
So I left Brinker on good terms, and with my new business partner, I knew where Chili's wanted to go. Like you said, that insider trader information. They were missing a location in Copros Cove, Texas. And so I went down there. It's probably just 3 hours south of Dallas, and found some property and put it under contract, and ended up having a letter of intent with Chili's. But when I was with them, we were doing almost 200 new Chili's a year. And that August, I left in February, and that was like August, they decided to put like everything on hold. Didn't do the Chili's deal, but along came Discount Tires, who wanted the location right after that, because, you know, location is always still key. And Discount Tires only buys their real estate. And so my partner and I, Jimmy, we put the property under contract, and we flipped it to Discount Tires. We bought it and had a closing the same day. And we made $165,000 profit after everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is more than my annual salary. Giving up all that free Chili's food was worth it. You know, I'm like, this is so much fun. So that was my first deal.
So how much was, so let's back up a second. You created your business plan, and you went to this guy who had 50 years of experience. Did you go to him because he was going to be help you with seed capital, just his experience? You were unsure. Like, why did you go to him?
Primary because of his really good reputation in Texas. And I had done deals, like I was on the tenant side, he was the landlord, in his reputation.
Got it.
And the nice
his
thing
balance sheet, probably.
Right. The financial part about it, to provide that. But the really nice thing that he provided to me, he paid like my salary of what I was making at Brinker.
Got it.
Because he always told me that if I financially had to worry about money, I could not be creative.
So important. That's so true, right?
And he did not want me to have to, like, if I was on commission only, or knowing it took a year for a deal, but he was like betting on me, the jockey. And that was our first deal that we did. And so
how much was it? How much was do you remember?
It was, I know we put like $5,000 down on the land. And I learned from the Brinker days that working in these smaller markets, there's so much opportunity, because I'm in Dallas. A lot of the brokers don't want to drive more than an hour. So if the Chili's did better in some of these smaller markets than in these big metroplexes. And it's so much easier to work with the sellers and buying their land and putting under contract. So this seller, he let us put it, if you could put it up, I think can't talk. A lot of times they only want you to put it under contract for 30 days, 60 days. But this seller let us put it under contract for 1 year.
Wow.
And it was around in the $500,000 for the land for the 2 acres.
Right.
And then we flipped it to Discount Tires.
That's amazing. And probably my guess is your deal with him, besides him providing you the salary, so you had comfort, right, and security, I presume he was also going to fund the due diligence costs, which are not cheap sometimes.
Right. So as you know, dealing with partners, we had everything up front as far as all of those pre-development costs, wood, come out of his expenses, and he paid all of those. And
Nice.
then once I started either making a commission or consulting, it would go into the pot and then, start taking it out of that. But he never wanted me to worry about having to bring in monthly to support my family.
That's great. And then were you guys 50-50 partners, or did you have a different setup for that?
We were 50-50 partners.
What a great guy.
He's amazing. I still have lunch with him. I had lunch with him recently, and he's just amazing. He taught me so much about business, life. He's just recently gave me a little piece of paper. I mean, he has a print in it. It says, do something kind for someone every day.
Oh,
And he's just so amazing.
that's so nice. So tell me a deal. So how long did you do deals with him?
4 years. Our next deal, I always love to share, because I think it was like almost, like a grand slam.
Tell me.
It's, as you know, in this business, it has to deal with persistence. This is another one where we were able to, a friend of mine was actually the real estate manager for Chase Bank. And she got tired of me asking her where they're doing locations. She's like, I don't know, go out to Tyler, Texas. I don't know if I'll do any deals out there, but go out there and go look. And so I went out there, and long story short, I ended up doing three deals with her. Chase ended up opening up 3 new branches out there, but the one we did was 5 acres because the partner I had, Jimmy, he had another partner who was the preferred developer for Walgreens.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew Walgreens wanted this Rose City motel that was there since 1950.
Wow.
And the owner, Mr. Patel, would not sell it to anyone. And I think I made 200 trips out to Tyler, Texas. And I would stand across the street at the Sonic and manifest that's where Walgreens was going to go.
That's amazing. So how did Mr. Patel one day call you and go, okay, Pam, I'm ready to sell?
No, I remember going in. By the time we became friends, he was inviting me. He managed the hotel too, and his son did, because by that time he was offering me tea, and I'm thinking, is he trying to kill me so he gets rid of me? Or, anyways, but I go, I don't care what your price is. It's all, in real estate, it's all about time and money. So I'm like, what is the price of this? And it was like $2.3 million, and it probably should have been like 300,000.
Wow.
But we paid that, and we ended up knocking down the Rose City Motel, and we did a Walgreens. We developed that for them, and then we put Chase Bank next door on an 80,000. The Walgreens deal was 493,500 a year.
Wow.
Build a suit. And then we did a Chase Bank at 80,000 a ground lease, and then next door McDonald's at a $60,000 ground lease.
Amazing. Home run, grand slam.
Yeah, we ended up we brought in 2 extra partners because of their relationship with Walgreens. So there were 4 of us, and I provided the sweat equity of 25%, and on all, no money at the time was required because of the 25-year ground lease with Walgreens. The bank loan that we were able to get to take that out, they took that as the equity. And then after that, we had the Chase lease that they took and all that.
Amazing. So persistence played a key. Relationships played a key. If you didn't have the relationship with the Chase person, you wouldn't have even gone down there, right?
Right.
And having Jimmy, and then just being in the business and understanding ground leases.
Correct.
There's people that are buying real estate and calling me, saying, how do I do a ground lease? How do I reach out to retailers? So, this is something that we've learned over the years in our careers, right? It's as much as I want people to invest, we have to be smart about it, right? So why did you stop investing with Jimmy after 4 years?
Well, we continue to do a couple more deals together, but he was not doing as many. And then another company in Dallas wanted me to come on to develop a lot with them,
Mm.
which looking back, you always look back, but you think, because Jimmy was at an age not to develop, a lot, and I was
You were
younger,
ready.
and
You wanted to do more.
right. And so I went with a company for 1 year, and then that did not work out. And then I went back to my own company, but we still continued to talk. And the person that was at Chase, the real estate manager I talked about, her and I are now business partners on developing property together. Because like you said, women have a hard time, in the business. And I remember I had another deal in the same city, Tyler, Texas, and I presented it to our group of women in Dallas called Deals and Heels. We're all in retail, commercial real estate. And I presented the deal to them, and they all turned it down. And Terry was the only one that said, what do we need to do? And that story is probably one of my favorite development stories that, we both. Well, in Tyler, just driving around on the other corner, there's another, you can usually find some good. I love finding hidden opportunities, and found this property I had been looking at for Chase, but the man would not sell. And then not until he finally was ready to retire, he sold 2 properties, an old piece of junk building on the corner. And you talk about failures. I had turned down another deal because everybody told me, Pam, it's too expensive. No tenants are going to pay that. You can't buy that land. You probably heard that before. And I would listen to them. I'm like, these men are smarter than me. They got to know what they're talking about, and all that. And I'm like, I can tell you my failures of things I've turned down because of listening to other people.
Men.
Right.
I have 9. I have 9 that I drive by all the time because I saw the site. This is the plan. And then I wanted someone to co-sign my idea. Right. And like, I'd go to men that were richer, had more experience, and I thought were smarter. And they would discourage me. It's too much. You're not going to get those rents. Blah, blah, blah. 9 properties in South Florida that are now developed as per my idea. So I tell the ladies at my conference every year, what that did for me was it gave me the confidence that I knew how I'm a good picker.
Right.
I'm now going to not go look for any support from anyone that I think is smarter, richer, or more experienced. And I'm just going to go do my own due diligence, make sure I've got all the facts, do the best I can, but I'm just going to go and not ask anyone's approval for my idea. So you and I are the same. I mean, that happened. I did that. You did that. But I don't do it anymore. You don't do it anymore.
No way. So when this property came up and I did my business plan, my pro forma and my business plan, and then everybody told me it was too expensive. And even my husband, who's in commercial real estate, said, Pam, you'll never get $30 square foot in rent. I don't even get that in South Lake, Texas, because he's in the business too. And I start overthinking it. And anyways, he was right. He was right. I didn't get $30. I got $33 a square foot. Mattress firm. Showed everybody. So Terry, partner, and her and I closed on both the properties, a vacant building. She ended up, and I know everybody always doesn't want to get in commercial real estate because they say they have no money. And I can give you several of all these examples of how I use, like you mentioned, OPM. I call it, other people's millions. And so I ended up, after I had presented it to several people, and even like I said, my women's group, 50, 60 women that are in the business, they all turned it down. Terry's like, yeah, let's do this deal. I got a couple duplexes. I went to the local community bank, talked to the president. He's like, hey, anybody have any extra real estate? And I said, yeah, my business partner has a couple duplexes. He's like, sure, we can use that as collateral. We took out a $1.65 million loan, did a 10-year ground lease with Mattress Firm. And then that was just a 3,000 square foot building. The same gentleman owned the property next door with Texas Car Title that already had an existing lease on it. And we bought it at a lot higher cap rate. And then it's probably been about 5 years, 4 to 5 years, but we held it and we had good cash flow. And it's one of those things we wish we still held them. We still talk about it today. Wish we held them, but a couple investors, one from Ohio, one from California, just offered us low cap rates to buy it. And we flipped it. And in a short time, we each made $500,000.
Amazing. So this deals with heels. It's so funny. And we talked about this last year when we had coffee. We have such similar things that happened to us. My first deal was a 1.77 acre plot of land. And I took my 3 best girlfriends. One represented Walgreens, one represented Home Depot and Costco, and one represented TJ Maxx, among others. So I brought them all to this Cuban restaurant, and they're like, why are we here? I'm like, see that outside that window? See that lot, that 1.77 acre lot? We're going to buy that. They're like, no, we're not. I'm like, no, it's 1.2 million. And we're going to do 2 ground leases with restaurants. It's going to be a great, and the 3 of them said, no, we're not doing it. So I said, okay, well, screw y'all. I'm going to go do it. And I put it under contract, and I figured 1.2 million, I'm going to go get 10 people that are going to give me $100,000. I ended up getting, I think, a $600,000 loan. I think I raised $500,000. We were negotiating with 2 restaurants for ground leases, and Walgreens comes calling. And I did a Walgreens ground lease. And then then the developer who was building it for them came and said, we have to buy this. And I remember calling my partner saying, and by the way, the 3 women came in after, later, after I said, I've got 5 people that are giving me $100,000 each. They all came in. But the developer for the Walgreens called and said, and I called my partners, I go, we don't want to sell a Walgreens ground lease, right? And my partners are like, again, it was someone more experienced, smarter, and richer than me. And they're like, well, put a stupid price, we'll sell it. And we put a very, very low price, and the Walgreens developer said, okay. And we made 399% on our money in less than 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
But my girlfriends who were in the business. So, I mean, I'm glad that they came back around, but what a shame that they only came back around after I'd gotten richer, smarter, male people that had committed to me.
Exactly right. After the partner I did it with too, after that, people had heard what we had done. And then they're like, hey, next time you got a deal, let me know. Hey, next time. But exactly. I'm dedicated to her. And now her and I have 2 properties too that we're currently developing right now.
So so tell us what you're doing now.
So we just recently, because of her bank experience, she found a bank in Birmingham, Alabama, vacant Regions Bank. And it's right out front of a Walmart. And with her real estate, selecting, thought it was a good site. So we actually closed on it together, 50-50 partners in July. Awesome. And this is the first time I bought a property without a tenant. That's a little nerve-wracking because I'm used to getting cash flow right from the beginning, but we figured the risk, and now we are talking to, cross our fingers, a national tenant that we didn't wait for them they've already toured it and everything with their CEO and all of that, and we didn't wait for them to submit us a letter of intent. We, as the owner, submitted them an offer, and we're waiting to hopefully cross fingers that tenant goes through. And then the other one is talking about relationships and a lot of good opportunity. I had a relationship with the economic development director because I know how important they are when you're developing property. I learned that from Chili's day to always go meet with them because they always know what property for sale, what incentives they're doing. So they're a great resource, or they will, tell you, not in not confidentially, if it's kind of out there, about kind of what's happening already in the city. They give you a big aerial. And so we currently have 6 acres under contract in Bonham, Texas, that the city owns, and it's on a main thoroughfare right across from Walmart and a lot of all retailers in that area that we plan on developing. And the nice thing is working with them and how, the confidence, knowing what I can, bring some nice tenants to their city, that they let us put it under contract until next year in May. Gave us the time.
Amazing. I mean, you don't hear that in Florida. That never happens anymore, getting time. But
Right.
Okay. So relationships, persistence. What if for the women in the audience that are in our business, because many of them are, or just in commercial real estate and are wanting to get started or wanting to, put their toe in, what's your advice for them?
Like I love what I do, probably like you. So I'm out of town now. I'm looking for new retailers all the time. I'm doing that. But, you see opportunities all day long. Like I talk to everyone, and, I even had like my dry cleaners. I drove through and I'm like, this would be a perfect location for a McDonald's, I used to drive my young boys crazy because I talk to everybody because I think everybody's in expansion mode, right?
Right.
And he ended up letting me, he thought it was a great idea too. He ended up selling the dry cleaners, but paid me a brokerage fee, and then we relocated him to some more property. But I was going to say, like, I even had like an old Kentucky Fried Chicken under contract for $300. That's less than, a lot of these deals I either put under contract for $500 or $1,000. I'm like, I always tell them, it's just earnest money. It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. Who cares if it's 5,000 or 5,000, right?
Right.
But I would say on your first deals, you really have to partner and team up with someone like myself. I'm looking for bird dogs all the time. Hey, if you find a property or find a land, don't do it by yourself. Even after 38 years of experience, every single deal, I learned something new. Teaming up with you, Beth, on going to your conference, meeting women, asking the questions, even the people in the business. The company I switched with for a year, it was all men, and then they had, we had women in the company too. And I'm like, hey, if I can invest in any of your properties, let me know. And I was an equity partner in one, and I was the only female out of the 10 men in it. And I'm like, where are the rest of the women? They're like, you're the only one that asked. So even in your own company, all those people are investing. You have to ask to get started. But I would not do it alone on your own, because there's so many,
Right.
like I could, I've written books on due diligence. One thing can throw off your performa and burn you.
So I mean, that's what I recommend too. I say be an LP first, right? Invest in someone else's deal, but definitely communicate to the world that you're looking to invest, because there are opportunities that if you don't speak up, you won't hear about, right? But and it's like women don't talk about money. Like guys are out on the golf course going, oh, I got a $100,000 bonus. Like they talk about money. We don't talk about money. We were taught as a very, early age, it's not ladylike to talk about money, which I hate that. And I'm trying to dispel that also. But let's talk about your books.
I did want to say one thing too, that I really learned a lot through this, and you probably know too, but me growing up, or even today, I always heard that debt was bad. And I overcame that real fast. I mean, the interest rates are higher now and debt's not so good. It's better to have friends and family and have other people invest in you. But I learned on a lot of these that we did have debt when the interest rates were lower, and there's good debt and bad debt. And
Yeah. And
just
seller
wanted to-
financing is great, right? Seller financing, family and friends. Look, debt is high now because we were spoiled, right? But I remember when my parent in 1982, when my parents, the mortgage was 18%. So 6 and 7 and 8%. I mean, for the history of the world, that's not bad.
Right. Right.
Right.
And then as you know, there's so much money out there. I could post it on LinkedIn that I'm looking for money. And that's the easy part. It's the deal these days that are a little
Finding
bit
the
harder
deals,
to find.
that's the most hardest thing, right?
So if you're driving around and you see that old building that, looks like a piece of junk building on a corner, you go to that gas station, you're thinking, this is a much better, like Chick-fil-A, they're relocating across the street. Every other location, they're going, taking 2-acre locations, just kind of following what some of these tenants are doing. I read annual reviews from these public companies. They post exactly how many they're opening, how many they're closing. And I could talk all day long, but back to my book.
The books. Yeah.
So I wrote my first book, 1 Cent Lemonade to $1 Million Deals, and had the wonderful opportunity for Barbara Corcoran to do my testimonial on that. And that's all about 25 lessons, 25 jobs and 25 lessons learned all the way since, I think I've been working since I was 2. And then I did 2 collaboration books with other women in commercial real estate on winning ways. And then the last one, Blaze Your Trails, which are, excellent books, and they're all on Amazon. Or if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to send you one. But I encourage everyone to write a book.
Yeah, it's hard though. I've written too. It's not easy. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is good. My email is pam@pamgoodwin.com, but follow me on LinkedIn. I post pretty much every single day on LinkedIn for information. And then my website is just pamgoodwin.com.
Okay, I put it in the notes. Well, I am so happy that you were my 30th guest. Magic number. Thank you for
how
being
old I
here.
am. Thanks.
Exactly. Me too. Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories, your wisdom, and just being a friend. And I'm so happy that you are here, and safe travels. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Beth. Great to see you.
Bye, Pam.
Bye.